All right, you're witnessing the death of American capitalism, and you don't even know it. One day ago, already 322K views. Damn, if everyone's on board, dude, this guy has 50 million subscribers. Holy crap! Everyone's on the same boat. We're all on the same boat. All right, let's see what's going on. I'm gonna move my camera here.
Dream always just a nightmare in disguise? For decades, it meant a steady job, a two-bedroom house with a white picket fence, and the classic 2.5 kids. Maybe even a college fund tucked away. But does that dream still exist? Today, wages are flat and debt is crushing.
It's gone. It's the American. It's not the American dream no more. What happened? What happened?
The very bedrock of the economy is cracking beneath our feet. So what happens next? On today's episode of The Infographics Show, we're exposing the death of American capitalism. Capitalism is one of those popular buzzwords that you have probably heard 1,000 times. It's a concept that's both simple and complicated. Depending on who you ask, the earliest versions of capitalism appeared centuries before America even existed. The core of capitalism is an idea that it's a means of production. It's a pretty big umbrella term.
Guys, capitalism means you have a free market, and in the free market, you can buy and sell whatever you can buy and sell whatever you want without restriction. If you have a lot of money, then you're winning.
For things like the infrastructure, equipment, resources, and labor involved in making products or services. And it can be privately owned by someone who isn't actively taking part in all of that stuff, and the resources made from selling those goods and services can be invested back into the process to make it bigger and, in theory, better. The name for those resources is capital, hence capitalism. Let's just say you're a cobbler, someone who makes shoes for a living. If you want to sell some nice leather boots, you would either buy the leather or tan it yourself. Then you design the shoe, cut the leather into the right shapes in your workshop, fuse it all together, and now you got yourself a pair of boots to sell. You can
Dang, he made the boots all by himself. That's a lot of work.
set the price of those boots based on the cost of the materials and the time it took you to make them, and a little extra for the skill you've built over the years. If you're lucky, you might just make enough off of those shoes to support yourself and maybe your family. But capitalists think a lot bigger than that. One highly skilled artisan might be able to craft a beautiful boot, but that takes time. What if you want to scale the process? Maybe the capitalist has family money, profits from another industry, or loans from the wealthy. With that cash, he snaps up a factory and begins hiring workers, rather than one skilled
So capitalism is you have a factory of factory workers. Bro.
person who makes a whole shoe. You hire one person to design the shoe, another person to cut the leather, another to sew it all together. None of them need the skills going in, but each job is simple enough that it's easy to train. With a production line of specialized workers, they can make and sell those boots all.
This is assembly line. Henry Ford or something.
A lot faster, which means the general public gets a lot more choice. In theory, it can be a more stable living for the workers too. They don't need to worry about marketing the products to their customers or getting the raw materials from their suppliers. The only thing they need to do is their little bit again and again. But each
Damn, we're not gonna have factory. We don't have factories in America anymore.
The process makes less than the cobbler. It's not just the extra overhead of a bigger system. The capitalist who set it up also wants his cut for putting in the money. And if they're particularly greedy, they can do one or more of three things: pay workers terrible wages, cut corners on production, or hit the consumer with a price tag way higher than the boots deserve. But in theory, capitalism has a mechanism built in for stopping this from happening: competition.
Dude, competition doesn't work. It doesn't work. People just team up. They team up, share the profit. They work together.
In an ideal capitalist world, there isn't just one sole person running an industrialized cobbling business. There might be a huge number of businesses doing this, and they are competing both for market share and the best talent for their labor. If the shoes are overpriced or the quality is poor, the customer can go elsewhere that sells better quality shoes for less. And if the work conditions are poor and the pay is terrible, employees can leave and join rival competitors. And that's when production lines fall apart. This is the free market, one of the core concepts of capitalism in action. The daddy of capitalism, Scottish economist Adam Smith, described capitalism as a system that turns selfishness into something useful. Since employers want to keep both customers and workers, it's in their interest to keep prices and wages.
So you want to be
Oh,
a
it's an ad.
engineer. Go to boot.dev.
What's this?
Make a free
Boot.dev?
account. Write some code.
Let's learn the code.
Oh, it failed.
Yeah,
Ask
I love
for
coding.
help. He helps.
All right, let's keep
fair
going.
and competitive. And nowhere on earth has capitalism flourished more than in the United States.
U.S.
In 1905,
USA, bro.
economist Max Weber published The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism.
The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism? Max Weber? He invented it?
He argued that America's Protestant roots were a big reason the system took hold so strongly. A nation that hated monarchy from the very beginning became the perfect breeding ground for capitalism. And as the centuries went on and European countries kept kneecapping each other in petty wars, the U.S. saw its industrial sector grow and grow. By the end of World War I, it was a true capitalist powerhouse on the
Yeah, we're so well off because Europe is neighboring a whole bunch of countries that don't like each other, and then they just fight each other while we're in a whole nother continent and nobody's bothering us except, I don't know, maybe Canada.
world stage.
Oops.
This
Move
saw
this.
the birth of the iconic American industrial heavy hitters like AT&T, Levi's, Coca-Cola, and of course Ford.
Ooh, those
The
are big
first
ones.
company to make
are
affordable
big ones.
mass-produced cars. Ford's unprecedented growth came from the same production line method we described earlier with our hypothetical shoe business. But it's not just the manufacturers that flourished in the US after the Great Depression. More on that later. It was the other key part of capitalism too, the consumers. After World War II, women had entered the workforce, creating a larger labor pool and more people with disposable income. The booming post-war economy gave rise
Hold up, I gotta move my camera up here. Okay, because I don't want to block the
to
the
a
text.
strong middle class, and with it, plenty of cash to spend. Meanwhile, much of the world was still recovering from mass bombings, invasions, occupations, and genocides. Selling goods to the American people became the most lucrative deal in the world, so plenty of American manufacturers could get rich selling their products domestically and avoiding tariffs. For a brief moment, it seemed like the whole capitalism thing might be the US's golden ticket to global supremacy and the greatest quality
Okay.
of life for its people. And then it all
Sounds
started
good.
tumbling down. The slow, agonizing death of American capitalism began with increased
Damn.
globalization of trade not long after World War II. The thing about markets under capitalism is, for them to stay healthy, they always need to grow their profits. This can happen in three ways, like we were mentioning earlier: less expensive manufacturing, higher market share, or more expensive products. But any one of those methods can be risky in a free market of choice for both consumers and workers. So what if you just pushed manufacturing somewhere else?
Oh man, this is where China comes in.
Thanks to the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, and much later the World Trade Organization, the waters were smooth for international trade. American companies started realizing that they could save a lot of money by putting their manufacturing plants in developing countries with weaker economies. They
But if you think about it, I don't think Americans even wanted to do these jobs. I think they would rather do other jobs. I think we feel too privileged to work in a factory.
would ship the goods back to the U.S. to sell them to American consumers at considerable markup, meaning a nice fat profit. And because some of these companies rely on sweatshop labor, their workers don't have the freedom to walk away when pay or conditions are terrible.
Ooh.
Massive trade deficits with countries where U.S. companies moved their factories have dragged down wage growth for Americans without a college degree.
Bam.
From 1979 to the mid-2010s, this group saw their wages shrink by about 5 or 6%. That's bad enough, but it's even worse when you compare it to the almost 226% rise in prices during the same period. But you wouldn't see that on the
Whoa.
news, where many of the companies outsourcing jobs overseas are buying
Wait, how does that work? They make 5% less money and everything costs 226% more. From 1679 to 2010. That sounds really bad. Is that true? That sounds really bad. But I guess everything was more. Houses were really cheap back then. Houses were really cheap.
During the same period. But you wouldn't see that on the news, where many of the companies outsourcing jobs overseas are buying lucrative ad spots. And if it seems like this has gotten even worse in the last few years, you are not just imagining things. The globalization of trade over domestic manufacturing made it extremely vulnerable to globe-shaking events like the COVID-19 pandemic. This caused a lot of these trade flows to collapse for months on end, an event we are still seeing the ramifications of today.
Wait, if all this happened, how come billionaires got way more money?
In unchecked inflation. However, as much as every politician hopes to ride into office on promises of bringing back manufacturing jobs like a magic carpet, there is no putting that genie back in the bottle without entirely restructuring the U.S. economy, unless the 1% is willing to take massive cuts to their wealth or pass the expense on to consumers.
Dude, 1% is willing to take massive cuts to their wealth. Is that trickle down economics? I don't know, man. It's harder. It's easier to believe in. It's easier to believe in ghosts and fairies than it is to believe in trickle down economics working.
And risk losing them, manufacturing will likely stay abroad. Neither option looks appealing. And without government pressure, which isn't coming, nothing is going to change. The U.S. is now a post-industrial capitalist society. And what does that mean for you?
What does that mean for me? It means I have to have a job. And it means that I have to do whatever billionaires tell me to, whatever they tell me to do.
Well, just take a look at your wage packet. We've seen pay for all but the richest take a sharp drop in the middle of a cost of living crisis. A study conducted on job website ZipRecruiter in 2023 found 48% of the 2,000 companies surveyed had dropped pay rates for some of their roles, especially the ones that were already the lowest paying. As prices rise, companies scale back to save money, creating an oversupply of labor that allows employers to lowball potential recruits. The competition for job offers is so low that there is no incentive to offer anything better. And we are all feeling this in our wallets on a day-to-day basis. A CBS poll found that 2 out of 3 Americans are stressed about their finances, and we are insanely jealous of that third American. And this still isn't as bad as the 3 out of 4 Americans who claim that their income hasn't managed to keep up with rampant inflation. Many Americans are having to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet, with zero hope of ever rising out of their economic bracket.
Yeah, because like they're like you do DoorDash, you do Uber, and that counts as a job. So it seems like everyone's doing kind of well because like the unemployment isn't too bad, but then can you really consider like DoorDash and Uber Eats and everything, all of those is like an actual job? That's like what you do when you don't have a job and you need a job. So I'm not saying those are bad gigs, but they're kind of just gigs.
For the average American, there's also the anchor of consumer debt hanging.
You gotta be more careful with these because like the unemployment rate tells us it should be more transparent on what's going on.
Around their neck. That's an average of almost $90,000 from a soul-crushing combination of credit card debt, auto loans, mortgage and personal loans, home equity lines of credit, and student loans. In theory, education should be the great equalizer, giving Americans equal opportunities to control their life and improve their chances in the job market. But how could that be possible when teaching itself is becoming a more hostile profession to get involved with? When adjusting for inflation, teachers in many states are making 5%.
Do you guys think college is worth it? Dude, I don't know. It feels really expensive, and I don't know how much you get out of it when you have the internet as a resource. You can learn whatever you want. You pretty much only go to college to hang out with people. To hang out with people your age.
less than they did 10 years ago, despite attempts at pay increases.
This is what the world
Place to
most
add.
PC looks like.
That's a cool PC. All right, skip it.
For people in the rapidly dissolving middle class, some of the traditional markets of capitalist success now feel hopelessly out of reach. And what's a better example of this than home ownership? In 2024, only 24% of housing sales were by first-time homebuyers. It's down an eye-watering 50% from 2010. These days, the average age of a first-time homebuyer is 38, 10 years
Damn.
above the historical norm for home buying. Back in March
38?
2025, only 1 in 5 homes was seen as affordable for someone with a $75,000 annual salary. If you are making a little less than that at $50,000, you can only afford 8.7% of home listings. That
Dude, you can't buy a house with $50,000. House is like $500,000 for a small one. You have to work 10 years. What? There's no way.
is down 9.4% from 2024. And while being forced into the position of the eternal renter is pretty bad, an even worse possibility is becoming increasingly likely. Since 2024, homelessness in the United States has risen a completely depressing
Oh, snaps,
18%. That's
18%.
around 771,000 people, almost a million Americans sleeping in their cars or on the streets. 150,000 of them are children. The U.S. Department of
Dude.
Housing and Urban Development, who conducted the reports on these matters, have said these are the worst numbers they have ever seen. If these trends hold up, that means one of the most basic tenets of the
Dude.
American dream, the house with the white picket fence, is going to be completely unattainable for the majority of Americans. The only way they'll ever be able to experience it is actually in their dreams. But what about the 2.5 kids? Well, it turns out
Damn, the only way they experience it is in your dreams, dude. Dang.
in this modern form of American capitalism, your prospects for that ain't looking so good either. There are around 10 million kids in the childcare system around the U.S., with an average cost of nearly $1,000 a month per child. And that is on the cheaper end. In California, you're looking closer to $2,000 per month. And that's not even factoring in costs of food, clothes, and leisure, which are only going to increase as they grow. And what about the promise that you'll be able to retire in your twilight years to rest, relax, and pursue
Dude, nobody's retiring. Retiring is not a thing anymore. Everyone's working till they physically can't work anymore. There's no retiring. Not in this economy.
your passions while living off your savings and pension? We're sorry to tell you that that window is closing too. 11 million Americans, 1 in 5 people over 65, are still working, with no escape but the grave in sight. 50% of women and 47% of men between the ages of 55 and 66 have no retirement savings. Meanwhile,
Wait, how much? 50% of women and 40% of men.
7% of men between the ages of 55 and 66 have no
Have
retirement
no
savings.
savings.
Meanwhile, 90 private jets flew to the second wedding of Jeff Bezos. The divide between the haves and the have-nots seems to be getting wider and wider. According to 2025 census data, we have seen the income of the average household stagnate since the pandemic, while the richest households in the country have actually seen a little boost. Normal people were suffering during the worst years of the pandemic lockdown, and the billionaire class was actually getting richer. The combined wealth of all U.S. billionaires increased by just over $2 trillion between March 18, 2020 and October 15, 2021, going from approximately $2.9 trillion to around $5 trillion. The U.S. has over 700 billionaires, the most of any country in the world. But let's
Wait, there's 700 billionaires in the US. Dude, one billionaire can like own a state. And like one billionaire can like own a bunch of states in the middle.
look at the 5 richest people in that period: Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Larry Page, Elon Musk, and of course the happily married Jeff Bezos. In that lockdown period, their combined wealth grew 123%. In the first financial quarter of 2025, the bottom 50% of earners in the U.S. owned only a combined 2.5% of all the wealth in the U.S. The richest 1% now own half of all U.S. stocks and mutual funds, up from 40% in 2002, according to the Federal Reserve. So when the news celebrates a booming stock market, we know who is really cashing in, and it's not us. It's important to remember that we have been here before. The Roaring '20s weren't exactly roaring for everyone. While the Gatsbys of the world were living it up, average people were having a harder time keeping it together. In 1923, the Supreme Court ruled that the minimum wage laws were unconstitutional, so if employers wanted to pay chicken feed to their workers, they could. In 1926, President Coolidge cut taxes for the rich to stimulate the economy, and this ended up having the absolute opposite effect. By 1929, deregulation had concentrated wealth to a staggering degree. Just 0.1% of the population held 30.
Dude, how could you believe that cutting taxes for the super rich will stimulate the economy? How does that even work? Wouldn't that just mean there's rich people have more money and everyone else has less money? That does not stimulate anything. This is like how easy propaganda gets us in the US. It's crazy.
4% of the nation's wealth, the same as the bottom 42% combined. Half of all corporate wealth in a country of more than 100 million people was controlled by only 200 companies. Despite corporate profits rising by around 62% over the course of the decade, that success did not trickle down. In October of 1929, the U.S. economy exploded, and even that is putting it mildly. One of the main reasons why the stock market crashed and the U.S. banking system went belly up is a pretty obvious result of short-sightedness and greed. Companies paid their workers terrible money to create a huge amount of industrial output and products. But because everyone was making terrible money, they had no purchasing power. So there was nobody to buy the products that those companies overproduced. Everyone.
I keep saying this, and I say it again. You need a strong middle class. You need a strong middle class in any country. You need a strong middle class. You need to incentivize people to work. You have to reward people that are willing to work. You have to. Otherwise, there's no production. No one has money. The economy goes down. Everyone suffers.
Was sitting on a surplus of overpriced goods, from agriculture to consumer products. And that set the stage for the Great Depression. What saved America back then was the New Deal, put in place by Franklin D. Roosevelt, under the economic philosophies of Maynard Keynes. Keynes, to put it simply, believed in the importance of circulation. A good, healthy economy is one where the money is always flowing. Bosses pay their workers well, who then can buy products with their disposable income, sending money back to the bosses. They use it to make more products and pay their workers. Meanwhile, the government makes a pretty penny on taxes from all those money movements. If there are strong labor protections in place, this system can work out for everybody. But that means less of the collective wealth is consolidated in the hands of the ultra-wealthy, our American super capitalists. Faced with labor laws that make them pay fair wages, companies found a workaround. Well, two of them, corporate lobbying and the gig economy. Uber.
Dude, the gig economy is so... Dude. The gig economy is not good. You don't get any benefits. You have to pay for your own gas. You barely make any money, and it somehow it also gets included in the as you're employed. I'm pretty sure if you make enough money off of it.
Airbnb, DoorDash, Fiverr, Upwork, CrowdSpring, Etsy, and LegalZoom all have one thing in common. They are not jobs, they are gigs. They sit in a legal gray area that lacks the protections or regulation of traditional employment, and they are becoming an increasingly popular way to monetize every aspect of life while saving money for the companies. Fewer people in a legal sense are employees than ever. From taxi drivers to writers of online edutainment videos, all of these people are contractors, and that is an entirely different dynamic to traditional employment on paper. An estimated 64 million Americans, representing 38% of the US workforce, did freelance work in 2023.
Dude, I don't know how the new generation is going to deal with this because, dude, it's really not incentivizing anyone to want to work at all. If you have to do gig work, you might do gig work for a little bit and then get bored or something. If you're like just going into the workforce as like a out of high school or college or something, dude, I would not be motivated to want to get a job. Dude, how I wonder what the new generation is reacting to this situation, cuz at least when I was younger, there was still like some incentive to like want to get a good job and stuff. But it doesn't seem like that anymore.
That is 4 million more than 2022, and it's only gotten worse since. And how do corporations keep all those loopholes that save money for them and destroy security for workers? 2 magical little words: corporate lobbying. This is when corporations and other groups pay to influence the actions of the jokers in Congress. 2024 saw an all-time high of lobbying costs.
Dude, lobbying is legalized corruption. That's all it is. How can you explain it any other way, dude? You're just paying money to get stuff done and to get what you want done in the government.
$4.4 billion. It's legally protected by the First Amendment and the Lobbying Disclosure Act. It makes sure that when money is protected speech, those with the most money will always have the loudest voices. They keep tax loopholes wide open. They make sure their failures get bailed out with taxpayer money. And when all else fails, a struggling company can legally buy back its own shares, artificially boosting value through false scarcity. But competition is supposed to keep them honest. So naturally, they're trying to destroy it. And the worst part, they're on their way. Companies empower themselves to act horribly when they move to aggressively crush their competition, whether it's through predatory pricing or the much more common monopoly-building methods of mergers and acquisitions. Larger companies buy up or merge with smaller ones, so they soon become the only choice on the market. And with enough lobbying money, you can keep the Federal Trade Commission off your back for a very long time. Don't
Dude, yeah, it's like a few companies that own all the companies. This is late stage capitalism. There's no competition anymore. There's no free market. You're just you've already lost when you're born. When you're born, you've already lost. You can't win. There's super corporations.
Believe us? Here are some companies you may know who have had antitrust complaints against them: Google, Amazon, Apple, Visa, and Live Nation Ticketmaster. It goes without saying that this is terrible for consumers and workers, but it's not getting better. Right now, the technologies that these companies are investing most heavily in, like artificial intelligence, are primed to make life worse of all for us. But what happens then?
Dude, AI, we have to have the talk about AI, because there's a good chance AI doesn't help anybody but the people who own the AI. And at some point, automation is going to get so good that you really don't need to hire that many people at all anymore. Automation is going to get so good. They're automating things every day. Every day, less jobs are needed. The economy can't be sustained off gig work. There has to be a way for money to flow back into the common people. There has to be a flow. There has to be a flow of money, and AI is really scary because even though like logically, AI will increase productivity, which will increase the total amount of resources available. But at the end of the day, it's not going to help the average person. It might even make things worse because they won't have a job anymore. So there needs to be I think there needs to be like a serious discussion about this. I think actually this is what people should be discussing seriously. Because there's a whole lot of topics in politics out there. There's a whole lot of topics going on. I don't want to name them. You know what they are. A lot of them don't help. There's a lot of politics that are just poop flinging at each other. There's no resolution. It's not gonna. I think as a country, as everyone in the world needs to figure out how we can sustain a healthy economy when everything gets automated. We can't just have the people who own everything have all the resources and then everyone else is just super poor. There needs to be a good balance. And I'm afraid that we are in the very wrong direction. We're on the very wrong side of the balance. We need to shift it a little bit. I think there needs to be AI it should make things better for everybody. It should make things easier for everybody. Not just the super rich people.
Will things hit a breaking point where we all collectively say, enough is enough, break down the system as it is, and work on building something better? Or are we just in the middle part of a domino chain leading to something a lot worse? For the middle and working class, things are looking pretty apocalyptic. Without reform or revolution, all the scary numbers that you've heard are only going to get worse. Wages, jobs, housing, debt, and homelessness. Monopolies are consolidating wealth and power like never before. They're engaging in crony capitalism that turns the government into their lapdog, and that leads to a world of techno-feudalism, where personal freedoms collapse right alongside personal wealth. One way or another, one thing is certain. With the direction that American capitalism is going, we're all going to feel the hurt. You might be witnessing the death of capitalism right now, but it's not the first time the country has been pushed to the brink. Watch tariff that destroyed the American economy in just weeks.
Up until the mid-'80s, an average CEO made 20 times what the normal employee made. Now that number has ballooned between 250 and 425 times the rate a normal employee makes. Companies cry about not being able to make enough of a profit to give adequate raises, yet the people at the top continue to give themselves multi-million-dollar raises each year. Dang, dude. People are rustled. You lost them as ASF. How do you even lose YouTube comments? How do you figure out how to lose? I don't know, dude. I'm just trying to zoom in, and it launches me back to the top because YouTube is dumb sometimes. As Jafar said, you've heard of the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. That's good. That's a good one. You've heard of the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. Oh my gosh, dude. Well, that's my face. We don't want that. Unregulated capitalism always leads to monopoly. Market winners via fraud, corruption, or legitimate product can leverage their economic power to buy up smaller competitors and buy up portions of the government. We need another Teddy Roosevelt to break up almost every sector of the economy. Jafar man preach. Yeah. Yeah. American dream, you got to be asleep to believe it. That's what George Carlin said. I'm pretty sure George Carlin said that. Let me see this. Actually, I want to look up that. I want to look that up real quick.
Buying things. People spending money they don't have on things they don't need. Money they don't have on things they don't need. So they can max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 18% interest on something that costs $12.50. And they didn't like it when they got it home anyway. Not too bright, folks. Not too fucking bright. But if you talk to one of them about this, if you isolate one of them, you sit them down rationally, you talk to them about the low IQs and the dumb behavior and the bad decisions, right away they start talking about education. That's the big answer to everything. Education. They say we need more money for education. We need more books, more teachers, more classrooms, more schools. We need more testing for the kids. You say to them, well, you know, we've tried all of that, and the kids still can't pass the test. They say, oh, don't you worry
Oh, no. Oh, man.
about that. We're going to lower the passing grades.
Oh,
That's what they do in a lot of these schools
no.
now. They lower the passing grades so more kids can pass. More kids pass, the school looks good, everybody's happy, the IQ of the country slips another 2 or 3 points, and pretty soon all you'll need to get into college is a fucking pencil.
Dang.
Got a pencil? Get the fuck in there. It's physics. And everyone wonders why 17 other countries graduate more scientists than we do. Education. Politicians know that word. They use it on you. Politicians have traditionally hidden behind 3 things: the flag, the Bible, and children. No child left behind. No child left behind. Oh, really? Well, it wasn't long ago you were talking about giving kids a head start. Head start, left behind. Someone's losing fucking ground here. But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. There's a reason education sucks, and it's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Be happy with what you got. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now.
The owners of the country. They don't want us to have a good education.
The big, the wealthy, the real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice.
Damn, dude. Damn, just think about that for a second. The politicians are there just to give you the illusion that you have the freedom of choice, dude. Because if you think about it, rich corporations can lobby and they can actually just tell the politicians what to do. So I guess that to some extent that does make sense. That does make sense.
You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media news, all the big media companies. So they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical.
Nope, they don't want us to be able to critical think. They just want us to fight over petty stuff continually. They just want the left and the right to fight over stupid stuff all day, and then while we're distracted by all that, they slip in under the rug all their policies that make them more rich, and then they get to do whatever they want because we're distracted. There's a circus, and we're distracted by the circus.
Thinking they're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. You know something? They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table to figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back. So they
Dude, we have a serious Social Security problem. We don't have enough young people to pay for Social Security. Let's go back to this.
Can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hardworking people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hardworking people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you.
Damn, dude, he's just telling it like it is, dude.
At all.
That's based. That is
You know?
based.
And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on.
Dude, he's mad, dude. He is so mad. He's disappointed. He's disappointed in the U.S. citizens for not caring enough about their own well-being. He's disappointed in people not caring enough about their own well-being.
The fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
There it is. That is it. There you have it, folks. That's the end of capitalism as we know it. So what are we gonna do? We can't just we can't just take money from the super rich people. I don't know. Does it seem fair, or can we? Can we tax them? If we tax them, they might just leave to a different country. We gotta figure something out. It seems like there's no easy, good way to go about doing this. You know, universal basic income is like what some people are saying. They're talking about. That might be good. You know, some people don't like universal basic income because they think people need to be able to. They should have some routine. They should be doing something to contribute. They need to be a part of something. And if you have a universal basic income, you're kind of just doing nothing all the time. Unless you are really motivated. So, I mean, dude, the jobs in the future, what are the jobs in the future going to be like? I feel like the jobs that are going to be left is like content creators, people, I don't know, psychologists, but you don't even, ChatGPT. Actually, people are using ChatGPT as a psychologist, as their therapist now. Can you believe it? I think the only thing that's going to be left is like providing entertainment for people. Like if you can provide entertainment for people, that's going to be like the last remaining jobs that exist, because like at the end, like everything else can be automated, like the food, the farming, everything, the packages, everything. The machine can move on its own. The thing that can't be automated entirely or completely, or maybe it can be automated, but you can also do it yourself, and people will always want it, is just entertainment. But I don't know. Everyone can't be entertainers. So I don't know what's gonna happen. It seems good. It seems like people are not worried. It seems like people are not worrying about this. It seems like people are not worried about this, and this that is a little disheartening. When I see people fight and argue over stupid things because they are on different sides. They're on different teams, and they're only fighting each other because they're on different teams. Just tribal stuff. It's just tribal stuff. This is tribal stuff. People, we need to learn how to work together. We need to learn how to work together. Come together. We gotta stop fighting each other. We gotta figure this thing out. Otherwise, we're all gonna lose. We're all gonna lose except some very few people. All right, I'm done. I am done. I'll see you guys later. Cheers. Cheers, my friends. Bye-bye.